Hi, welcome back to Project Brupeg.
This is the last episode for the year. We thought we'd just have a little bit of a talk about who we are, how the year's gone, what's coming up.
Trev and I get back up into the front of the boat and do a bit more work on the crash bulkhead.
We got the jet ski cut up. We've been prepping the boat today for three weeks of straight work, which we don't really get the privilege of very often. We're working and restoring the boat around our normal working week, so it's a bit of a treat. So this should be the last Christmas here in this part of the world in Queensland, Australia. So we are hoping to launch
next January.
Around about February, March, April. So depending on how things go and how long the stabilisers take to build. Stabilisers are the wing things that balance the boat in the water. They're quite a big engineering build, so they could take a little longer than we think, but hopefully we'll be on schedule and we'll be in the water soon. This is the jet ski that Benny Luckcraft helped us find really cheaply. Rod helped us collect it. It's going to be used for the jet engine for our dinghy. You can see Dame's moving the hull there. This is going to be the jet engine that powers it, but first the guys actually have to cut the motor out of the jet ski, so that's what's next.
Part of ski destruction is I want to use so we've got the engine, we've got the gearbox, jet unit, engine, etc. I want to reuse the dash that's up here. The rest of it is pretty much superfluous, doesn't need to be used. So we're going to try and take whatever it is that's holding all of this dash component together, we're going to try and take that off and sit it on top of the motor, and then we're going to get the skill saw out and chop the deck off so that we can start chopping more and more back, and we end up just with basically the motor on a little piece of the bottom, and then we can stack that in the engine bay when we're ready to use it. What are you after? Oh, I got one. Yeah, let me do that. I'll do that, you do the other. Clear, lovely. Alright, so we've got more cable. So what else we got? So that's our oil tank, that's our fuel tank. Right. So up that side cable. Yep. Get rid of this plastic and you can see which one does what.
Gotta get one out at a time or something?
Yeah. So we're at a stage where we're starting to really strip things down. You can see in here, Trev's basically unplugging all of the cabling that went up to the dash. So we've got the dash here. We plan to reuse all of this. So these cables go through an aluminium casting, so we have to unplug them, feed them through the casting, and then plug them back in so that we can get rid of this casting out of the system. We don't need this anymore. There's a few controllers like these all connected to Morse cables and so on, so you got your steering and you got your reverse bucket. We don't need to use any of those. We're going to use a different system in the dinghy, so this for us is scrap, but we do need to keep all of these electrics, hence we're taking our time and just pulling these apart gently. So what do we got? We got two cables and one electric, like a fuel pipe. That's a Morse cable. That's a fuel.
We can cut that fuel pipe, can't we?
That one out of there. What I'm thinking is put a zip tie around that and then cut that one You see what I mean?
Yeah,
I'll go and get some zip ties because I don't want to lose where everything sits.
Yep.
I'm figuring if we can get all the electrics back, we can maybe just cut this front off and we got access to the whole thing. Once we know we're not going to cut through wires, we're sort of safe. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that's that guy. Right, so what else we got up the front here? So,
What's that one?
that's a choke on off.
Oh, right. Yep.
So I need to take that out as well.
That goes to the motor, doesn't it?
Yep. Okay, so fuel line.
Put a bit of
Yeah,
drape over the top.
Oh, what about a bolt?
Yeah.
Too big?
That would be these, I reckon.
Okay. So we've got it to a stage where we can get the fuel tank out. Now, the fuel tank is almost entirely full. I didn't realise that. There's probably a good, I don't know, 40, maybe, yeah, probably 40 litres, something like that in there. Now, when you're doing fuel, it's really important to use approved containers. And I have approved these to be used, so that's what we're going to be sticking it in. It's a bit heavy to lift that tank out as it is with it full, so we're going to get a little fuel pump. I think it's a little 12-volt fuel pump that Trev's got on his boat. We'll pump it out, we'll stick it into those containers over the back, and that'll allow us just to get rid of that tank, and we can then cut the front of the boat off. Maybe we cut the front off and then go around and cut the top of this off.
Wing.
Okay, let's drop it down. Hey. There we go. The front's off. The plan at the moment is to essentially keep cutting and cutting and cutting until we're basically just got the engine sitting on its fiberglass beds. You can sort of see the way they've built it, so there's multiple parts. They've got like a floor section, you can sort of see here, there's a join, you've got foam, this being the top section, this is the bottom section, so hull and then inner skin. You can see the join just there. And then basically that obviously goes in after they've made the hull. Fill it up with expanding foam, etc., or some variation of that, and then the engine's bolted to that. Now what we're struggling with is that obviously presents a few problems, because you can see all the way along there that's glued, so you got this part here is your steps where the old footrests and everything go, and it's glued in there pretty solid. I didn't realise that until now, makes sense, but obviously so we need to strip that out. But what I am thinking is on the transom there's quite a lot of stuff, so we've got an exhaust outlet here, obviously your jet unit, they've got the speedo sender there. What I'm thinking is actually leaving the transom, all of the gear attached to the transom, maybe cut something like up here and across and then back over the other side and back down, so that when we do take what we do take away, it's all bolted in and sort of not floating in mid-air.
Job done. This will be wrapped and stored in the engine bay, ready to be pulled out once we're in the water, when we're ready to do the build from the jet dinghy. What is Project Brupeg? We bought this sunken trawler, Jess Dame and me. We bought it because we've been looking for a boat strong enough to create a expedition boat and a project and research boat, and we wanted to take people from around the world with us on these projects or these voyages, and also wanted to build a boat. We wanted to have the experience of relying on ourselves and getting tough enough to handle building something of this magnitude, and Brupeg provided us with that. How we fund Brupeg is Damien works 40 hours a week in a job. I do everything to do with the project that he can't get to, and we have a YouTube channel that pays us a little bit, and we're sponsored by Patreons, our lovely Patreons. If you don't know about Patreon, that's our main funding really for the project in the long term. That's what the goal is. Patreon is a platform. It's an online platform that supports people who are creating videos and material that goes onto YouTube that people can watch. So it's like watching a television series. And normally you're on YouTube, a lot of stuff is for free, but someone pays for it. Someone's created that, someone in the background is sponsoring themselves to create that material. With Patreon, you can directly sponsor the stuff you're watching if you like it, or you want to see more of it, or it's inspiring or whatever. It's a way to keep them going. Otherwise, a lot of these channels actually start and fail. There's a lot of travel channels, there's a lot of boat channels, there's a lot of boat building channels, there's a lot of building channels online, and we're one of them, and we're combining building engineering, boats and expeditions and projects. And what we really wanted to do was build something this big. I'm sitting under the hull at the moment. It's so big, really. We wanted to build something this big because we wanted a challenge with our life, and this is that. So about a year and a half after buying the hull and starting work on the boat, we were committed financially and every other way in our life to this project, and I got really sick. I got diagnosed with a few conditions, and they're kind of deteriorating conditions, you know. And we decided to carry on with the project. We both talked about it thoroughly. Should we continue? It's really stupid to continue something this size that would really make a healthy person quite sick, potentially, very tired, and maybe age prematurely. But we decided it was worth it. So I'm just very responsible for my health. I don't let it get in the way of anything, and I make sure that the project continues no matter what's happening with me. And Damien's incredibly supportive.
It's 5 years of work on this boat. We've been working for 5 years, pretty much every opportunity. We haven't had a holiday really for 5 years. Pretty much every opportunity that we can, we're on this boat working as many hours as we can. We feel that we've been working as many hours as we can. God, my back tells it is.
For me, this is the critical bit, because we're both so tired, so it feels like everything is much bigger than it would have been in the beginning. You know, you have a lot of resilience in the first 2 to 3 years. The last year is hard.
Yeah. How does it feel having the boat in Australia with so many bushfires and so much heat happening?
It's worrying, yeah. So we're actually going through this week, the first week of Dame's three weeks off work, his day job, and we're making sure that we've made sure the boat's really safe. We're in cyclone season, so we have to make sure the boat's tied down. The guys in the yard did all the boats, and you know, they kind of drive a big sort of nail into the ground, it's an enormous thing, plummet that into the ground, and they tie the boats down so that hopefully the boats will withstand quite a bad storm. So we've got a bit of work to do this week just to prep the boat properly for the season.
I suppose, yeah, the question, what's it feel like coming up to the last stretch? I suppose for me it feels a bit surreal, you know, like I haven't really been thinking about what happens when the boat's done. Like, it's more just a case of you just keep going because there's that next job to weld, or that thing to cut off, or I need to build a such and such, you know, like it's just one thing on the list after the next for 5 years, and I don't know, it's a bit of a step change for me in my head to get my head around the fact that the boat's actually going to be in the water soon. And
just living, you know, we live a 40-hour working week, and then we do the boat as well, and with my ill health and supporting our family and all sorts of normal everyday stuff we do around the project. So it's and of course looking after our little sick dog before he passed away. I feel like we're coming to the last part of this part of the project.
I've got 3 weeks off work, my normal regular 40-hour day job per week thing, and we're planning to use pretty much every day that we can, because this is my one chance of the year to get a big solid burst of work done on the boat. What we're hoping to get done is the crash bulkhead complete and the anchor room redesign finished. That's going to give us the ability to basically launch the boat without any sort of concern about that front end, but also use the anchor without the chain binding up, which was a big problem that hadn't been solved. And we've also got a stonking great pump for that room, so that room's going to be really quite functional, which it never had that. You probably couldn't have said that about it before. So hoping to get that complete. That's hopefully the first week. And the second week we're hoping to get all of the control system in for the main engine up to the bridge, so that we can control throttle and gears from the bridge. At the moment you can only do that out of the engine bay, and that's because nothing's hooked up. Now we were going to be doing that with electrics, so we were going to be making essentially an electric throttle and electric gear shifter. We've actually found a way where we can go back to Morse cable. Morse cable was pretty basic, you know, 100-year-old technology. It's just a push-pull lever essentially, and I'd pretty much in the early days decided that we couldn't do that because there was too many bends and curves and stuff that had to happen in the freezer room where the cables run through for it to be practical. You know, I thought there's going to be too much friction in the cables, but I think we've solved it. Actually, Malcolm solved it. So part of week 2 is building all of the internal walls and everything in the freezer room, because inside those internal walls is going to be some Morse cables. So you'll see more on that shortly when we get into that part of it. This morning I'm going to attempt probably the most dangerous weld that we've done in Brupeg so far. So I'll show you why I'm calling it that. So when you weld, you basically, this is going to seem a bit obvious for the welders, but you've got wire that comes out the end there, you can sort of see in the centre, and then around this outside sort of gap, one-handed, see if we can do it, so all the way around here, you've got a shielding gas that comes out. In our case it's argon and CO2 for the steel that we're welding. Argon and CO2 are heavier than oxygen, so if you're in say a tank or a deep hollow or a pit or a hole and you're doing welding, that argon is basically going to, think of it like water, it's going to sit at the bottom and it's going to slowly fill up. If it fills up too much and you'll start breathing it, you're going to collapse and you're going to die of asphyxiation from lack of oxygen. In every tank on Brupeg we have a bung, so you can see down here, this is the fuel tank that I've been climbing in and out of doing this front welding, and you've got that bung basically right there. It's I think it's 1.25 inches, something like that. Essentially we screw a fitting into that and then we connect a vacuum cleaner onto it, and that simple gadget basically allows us to drain the tank from the bottom. So remembering the water analogy, if you've got basically argon and CO2 slowly filling up into the tank, you need to pull that excess gas out from the bottom. So that's why the vacuum cleaner at the bottom of the tank works really well for that aspect. Now the other part of it is putting in fresh air from the top. So I'll show you how we do that. Depends on how big the area is that we're welding, how big the tank is, but we've got an industrial blower or fan, extractor fan, whatever you want to call it. Pretty simple little unit. We picked it up secondhand for 50 bucks, and this thing is a great little thing for pushing in a huge volume of air into a space. Now the trouble with using that big blower up here on the bow is down in the anchor well here, so that's the pad that we're going to be welding in. And there's not a huge amount of volume in this space, so if we start blowing in large volumes of air, I'm going to lose all my shielding gas, the argon and oxygen that's needed for the weld, and end up with porosity in the weld. So we have to be pretty careful about how much air we actually put into this tank. So one of the ways that like a lot of the professional welders and that'll do is they'll have a fresh air, I think it's called a fresh air kit or a fresh air mask, something like that, but basically what it is oxygen and atmosphere and air and all of that sort of carry on pipe down to the welding area where they wear a regulator, a bit like what it was if you say scuba diving, that sort of thing, so that you're breathing air that's coming from, you know, way out behind where you're welding from. It's not affected by the gas. You can be totally submerged in argon and CO2, and because you're getting fresh air it won't matter, you'll still be okay. That sort of gear is quite expensive. I don't have that gear. I don't have the need for it because we just don't have enough tank welding in this boat that sort of warranted spending sort of, you know, multiple thousands of dollars on a setup for that. The way that we've been doing it for 5 years now. We've had no issues. We've not even had any lightheadedness. So we're more than happy with the way that we're doing it. It seems to be working really well. But it is something that we have to factor in. Every time we're in a tight space, we just got to be really careful because the risks are quite high when you're doing that sort of thing. So we vacuumed the room out, and this is what we're left with. Right the way along here, we've basically welded it in. Gives you an idea of, if I can get this to focus, there we go, it gives you an idea of the welds all the way around. They're pretty much similar to that. Now, over here, we've done some pad welding, so let me zoom in. Alright, so you can sort of see there's a big fat weld all the way down that one side. That was an area that we knew was a bit thin. In some places it was down to 2 millimeters. But basically, because I knew I was putting two 6mm plates either side of it, I knew that I was able to beef it up really quite strong. So we've cranked the welder right up and welded that in yeah, as hot as we can get it between those two plates. Now what we're going to go do is on the outside of this plate, we'll V it out and we'll fill this up. We're going to do that tomorrow morning because it's again too windy. It's first thing in the morning on a Thursday, I think it is, but we're going to go out and weld it first thing in the morning tomorrow when the wind's down.
So, the project, once we've built the boat in the water, we start building the rest of it. So that's the more detail, that's the rest of the interior, that's the technology that we'll be using on the boat. We'll be doing all sorts of projects and expeditions. Our main expedition that we're aiming for is to go to Antarctica. Both Damon and I have a dream of going to somewhere like that remote and that incredibly interesting. And that's one of the things we really want to do with this boat. And the really fun thing is that you can actually get on board with us. So if you're a patron, patrons get first option on any expeditions or projects or research projects or anything like that. But there's so many places in the world we want to go to. We're not really, you know, sitting on a beach in the Mediterranean type people. We'd rather be doing something like catching poachers or recording areas of the world that are being destroyed. We want to be with people who are very interested in researching things around the world. And we're very interested in building a community that is interested in this kind of work and this kind of life.
I've been blown away by the level of interest and support, because there's two separate things going on. Like when we first started building this boat, a bunch of people started saying, why don't you share your story, like share it, share this, like tell people about it. And my initial thought was, who would want to watch, you know, a grubby boy building a trawler? Like, it's just, it never crossed my mind that it would be of something that would be of interest to people. And the fact that it has grown as well, the channel has grown as well as it has, it's just kind of blown my mind away. Like, you know, sort of it got me out of the morass that my head was in, thinking that what we're doing is not something that other people would be interested in. I personally find it incredibly interesting, and it's cool to realise that there's other people out there that like this sort of stuff as well. And as for the supporters, that's something that I never ever anticipated. And the thing that I love about this boat is right from day one, it was drawing people in to support it, to support the project. And it wasn't us asking, you know, can you help us, like asking our friends, can you help us, we desperately need help. It was our friends ringing saying, oh, we'll come up for a week and give you a hand. And initially our first thought was, why? Like, we did this to ourselves, I don't understand. And they said, no, we're definitely going to help, like this is something that's awesome. I was like, okay. So it's pretty cool, like it's pretty damn cool that it can do that for people, you know, like it's a thing that can, it's a project that can create that feeling for people, and they leave here having sort of been a part of something like this, and I think that's pretty awesome, you know. Like, I mean, Jess and I always went into this that we would do it ourselves. Like if no one else helped us, we'd still, you know, we'd work at it, we'd pay for it, we'd, like, everything was self-sufficiency, we'd do it ourselves. But the fact that people have basically said, hell no, I want to be involved in this as well, and they fly from Vegas, Richard, or Canada, Dennis. Like, there's people all over the world. Craig, one of the local fishermen that helped us on the rudder, and there's Scott that came in from the other end of the country, Australia, to help us do our solar panels, and it's become a global thing, and I'm really proud and honoured to have been part of that, you know. And now we've got some amazing people that we talk to as part of this project, and that's for me what Brupeg is it's a catalyst for community. But I'm looking forward to getting in the water. I'm really curious about what the channel is going to be and what the boat's going to be, and because nothing's set in stone, we don't know exactly what we're going to do once we're in the water, but I'm really curious to find out where that's going to go and where it's going to take us in the channel.
Really, one of the things that really interests me, and I'm recording as I go along, is living in an alternative way. And living alternatively is, you know, no fixed abode, and building a lifestyle that's about a community, giving and receiving from this boat. And we've had to rely on ingenuity and toughness and backing ourselves. You know, many people think how we do things is not the correct way, and we don't really care as long as we're not hurting anyone and we're actually achieving the goal that is Project Brupeg.
I think if you ever want to find out how strong your marriage is, build a 60-foot trawler. it really is the litmus test to figure out, are we compatible? I've learnt who Jess is more than I probably could have had we not done this. I've learnt just how bloody strong of mind she is. Jess is without question the thing that keeps this project on the rails. And I'm not saying that to be the doubtful husband and all that horse shit, because I'm not that romantic. Jess is the friggin' admiral, you know. Like, I think the relationship right now is probably stronger than it's ever been, in the sense that we've worn off the rough edges, you know. Jess occasionally says things like, we've had some fairly good arguments. I would say that they were very robust conversations about two quite different points of view. And one of us was right. I'm just not saying who. I think as a result the relationship is stronger than it would have ever been had we not done something this hard. Because you can't go through something like this and not rip the shit out of the things that don't work in the relationship, because you need two people that are just, you know, incredibly strong. Your partner is counting on you to be there and to bloody do what you need to do, and vice versa. And
we have people contacting us, sharing what Brupeg meant to them, and it puts your life in perspective. Really does put your life in perspective and what you're doing. So the whole point of this is we wanted to wake up in the morning and live a life that was worth it, and this is it.